what, Jamie? Let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We got to go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people in the chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrisSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Ueyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is December 20th, Thursday. Happy signing day, everyone. It is signing day 2023 for the 2024 recruiting class, and I think Notre Dame's got a good class here. I do, and I also think that with the portal and things of that nature, the actual rank of the class takes a little bit of a back seat in terms of just like how important that is, right? It's more about filling needs on your roster, and some of the bigger needs that teams have, they can fill in the portal. So it's all about building the depth that you need on the roster going forward. And I think Notre Dame did that, especially at wide receiver. They got the quarterback. They got the kind of the headliner in Kingston Viliamu-Asa, who was like kind of the big recruiting win over Ohio State in that one. So Jamie and I are going to talk about the recruiting class, go over some superlatives, go player by player, and it's going to be a really fun show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching us, please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the like button on this show, and please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to this podcast are in the description below if you prefer just the audio format. A lot of people do that. A lot of people listen to both, Jamie, and we appreciate those people very, very, very much. So it's going to be a fun show today, and we want to, the signing day, it's big, right? People have signed. People are looking very nice. And if you want to look very nice for this holiday season, there's no better gift for your husband, your father, your brother, your son, your nephew, you name it, than ESQ Clothing and their bamboo dress shirt, which you've seen on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. And it's the world's most comfortable dress shirt made of sustainable bamboo fibers. The bamboo shirt is naturally odor resistant, wrinkle resistant, and even machine washable. Also 3 degrees cooler than cotton, so you can sweat it out while you're watching games. We didn't have to sweat it out today, Jamie. No drama, National Signing Day, which is nice. Around this time, people are always lamenting, like, oh, I miss the days of like when signing day was an exciting time. And I think a lot of people forgot, like, you know what? Like last year's signing day was very exciting. A lot was going on last year. Didn't end the way you wanted, but it was very exciting with a lot of drama. So not so this year. But we got something special for you guys from ESQ Clothing. Use ISD25 to get 25% off your online purchase at esqclothing.com, or visit God Chicago showroom to get your perfect custom fit. All right, Jamie. So all the signees are in, and Notre Dame is sitting at, we'll do the composite in for the 247 composite ranking, because I think that's probably the best one there. Notre Dame's sitting at 9th, right? But how do you just bird's eye view, how do you judge this class and what they have? And then we'll go position by position here.
Well, first off, let me get a shot at 24/7 in, because they did a horrible job with their rankings this year. I'm just going to say it. Like they're off on a lot of guys. For
Shots
Notre
fired.
Dame guys.
Well, okay. Who are you thinking of? Who's top of mind?
Well, they have like a ton of there's like a lot, like Styles Prescott. Like no one who's ever watched an offensive lineman would watch that guy and make him a 3-star prospect.
Disgraceful.
It's just a bad ranking. It's just a bad ranking. And there's certainly some other guys you can make a case for that, they could have it at a certain level, but like basically the reason why the rankings would be up based on everybody else's rankings and not theirs. So like they're the reason the composite ranking isn't higher, for Notre Dame. I look at the class and I just see, I disagree with a lot of them on there. So I just think that, you take the composite and it is what it is. But them personally, they have knocked Notre Dame down. Who knows? As Xander Cruz pointed out, On3 it's not fantasy CJ Carr for whatever reason. Everybody else
He's
since
in
the
the
lights went
200.
on.
He's in the 200s. Yeah, everyone else is like around top 50, and they got him in the 200s there.
Yeah, which
Styles Prescott for the in the composite there, I think they have him a 380 or in the 380s and 385. I think it is.
I mean,
So
I just think if you just watch a senior film, I think he's closer to the top 100 level prospect. I don't know if
yeah.
it's because he's from Indiana. I don't know if because he didn't throw the discus long enough. Because I mean, there are like whatever translatable track stuff. I'm not saying that isn't a thing, but when that becomes like number one on your list, maybe change the list. Is what I would say if that's too much focus, especially with offensive linemen with feet like him. So I would just say that some of that has something to do with it. I think it's a really good class. Like I think that overall, in my mind, there's like 5 guys in the class that I would put like as like kind of like at least at the very least like borderline top 50 guys, which is a
Well,
great for Notre Dame.
let's talk about that real quick because Jason Z had a question similar to that. How do you feel about true difference makers in this class or recent Marcus Freeman classes, and how far away still is Notre Dame with the top tier for college football playoff success? So let's talk about the difference makers. You said 5, right around your ISD top 50. So who do you think falls into that?
Well, I mean, CJ Carr. I mean,
Yeah.
I think definitely, he's one of the top quarterbacks in this class for a reason. I think he's a guy who can make every throw that you need to. Really intelligent. Can improvise. A great athlete. A guy you can use as a dual threat. Very a high floor and also a high ceiling. Right.
Yeah.
Cam Williams is to me the best receiver that Notre Dame has signed since Michael Floyd. I think he deserves to be kind of mentioned in that category. But he's kind of closer to a Will Fuller in terms of his explosive ability. He definitely needs to develop, and there's things that he needs to do in order to become a complete receiver. But just traits wise, he has everything you need to be like a true wide receiver one, but like a guy who can also just provide the big play and at any time could like take a like a slant and make it a house call. And those guys are rare. So, certainly one of the they just don't sign receivers like that very often. I think Bryce Young is exceptional. Like I think that he is the Joe Alt of this class, where they took him at a certain point where it was projectable. He was 6'3", 208 when they offered him. Well, now the guy's 6'5", 250, right? And he's, if anything, he looks more explosive. Like he had barely played defensive line there. And obviously some of that is projecting him because based on his dad. And obviously his dad was a fantastic player, and they thought like, oh, this guy's going to grow. But I think he surpassed any kind of expectations that anyone could have had for him. He kind of hit all the markers, and really, I think he's one of the best, edge rusher prospects in this entire class. And I would say, in terms of where they're at, in terms of like probably maybe the best edge guy that they've signed since like the Tua Lynch class. I would put him above, like, in terms of where I feel about his ceiling. His ceiling is higher than like guys like Khalid Kareem and Julian Acquire, who were great players for Notre Dame, right? Higher than Isaiah Foskey, right? Like he's that good. He can be that good. Like he's raw. He still has, things that he needs to grow, but like, man, just super exciting physical traits and just great motor. I mean, Gerby Lambert, he could be a first round left tackle. Like he has all of that, everything that you need in terms of feet, frame. He showed he's mean enough. I wouldn't say he's a mauler, but he's certainly mean enough. Like he has Ronnie Stanley type traits there. And, so he could be that guy, an elite left tackle in college football. And Kingston Viliamu-Asa is the safest prospect Notre Dame has signed in forever, right? Like he's extremely high floor and a high ceiling too, because he's already proven against the best competition in the state of California, he's the best player on the field. The best player
He
on the
was the
field.
LA Times Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Middle linebacker, Player of the Year.
Yeah. Best player on the field, and super intelligent, instinctive, physical, loves football, is going to be, and a perfect fit for Notre Dame. A perfect fit for Notre Dame. A guy who can play early. Like, he's going to be in the 2 deep immediately. And it wouldn't even be shocking if he started at some point this year. And while he could be the Mike linebacker for Notre Dame, he also might play that hybrid role that Maris Leofau played and do it well, because he can rush off the edge. And he has an understanding as a pass rusher, just feel as a blitzer. He's violent. I mean, he's just an awesome, awesome football player. And so to me, you put those 5 guys out there, and you know what? The chances of all of them are getting hit, it doesn't always happen that way, right? But like, if they do all hit, I mean, those are just absolutely elite players. And I just can't think of, in the last, definitely in the last 5 years, that they signed 5 guys like that. They probably signed like 3 or 4 in certain classes, but 5 guys that I would all kind of put there where I'm like, this is the best guy since blank, right? Like, there's a lot of those guys in this class.
A lot of those guys that are at the positions that are premium in the sport right now, right? So quarterback, wide receiver, defensive end, middle linebacker, right? Offensive tackle, right? Like, these are the positions that are getting drafted very high, premium positions, and what Notre Dame needed, right? And so that to me is like where it kind of like, that's when I start to feel like, the ranking aside, like they've really loaded up on the spots that they need to be good. And to get to the question from earlier, which was like, how much closer does it bring them? Like, if these guys hit and they become what they can become, like that is what takes you from like a good program to a great program, and it can make noise in the college football playoff. Rajon asked the question, do you think the staff has a better eye for talent? Never mind the rankings. I definitely think that defensively, they know exactly what they're looking for. Because you look at these corners, right? And Carson Hobbs and Leonard Moore, like those guys, when they signed, or when they committed to Notre Dame, it was like, they're fine, right? They had measurables, and you kind of look at the measurables. It's like the size and the length and things of that nature. And then you see them, how they developed and how they played. I know Mike is super excited about Carson Hobbs. You and Mike were on Power Hour yesterday, and I encourage everyone to listen to that because you went deep on these guys. I know you're super excited about Carson Hobbs. I know you're very excited about Leonard Moore. And those guys have, like, to go along with those physical traits, now then they become playmakers, right? I thought Leonard Moore did a lot of really good things on offense, which is great. I like that. Xander Cruz says still wanted Beasley, like, for sure. Like, that would have been great. But I think the fact that they targeted those guys and they went after them, when at the time it was like a little bit, we're not sure, we got to see how it develops. Same thing with Bryce Young, right? Like, it's very similar. And I think defensively, they know what they're looking for. Teddy Rizak is a good example there, where it's like those physical, like we had the superlatives, Jamie, that Matt had us do, and that's going to be going up on irishsportsdaily.com shortly. One was the freaks list. Who's most likely to be on the Bruce Feldman's freaks list one day? And I put Teddy Rizak, because I think just physically he has those kind of traits where it's like he has the size, and he can, the way he moves, the way he runs around. Like, I just feel like he could be on that list. And so I could see him being there. Same thing with Bodie Cahoon, right? So I think they have a really good eye defensively for what they do. And so a lot of people are talking about, like, there aren't a lot of stars on this defensive class. But when you look at, well, how do they fit into what Notre Dame does, especially this year, it starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I just really think that when you look at the depth of the class in general, everybody kind of has traits that you're like, that guy could be an NFL player.
Yeah.
And that that's the kind of thing that matters. And that's honestly, I think with the one major criticism I would have had of Brian Kelly's staff is that they settled on a lot of guys who were like, hey, this guy's a pretty good player. He's big, whatever, right? But it was like they didn't have something there where you're like, well, this is projectable, and you could see the growth that could happen from somebody, right? Like, and there's a lot of guys that they took as projects, and I'm like, this guy needs like 7 things to go right for it to happen. And I don't think there's as like, even with a guy like Teddy Rizak, I think Teddy Rizak, first of all, his senior film, people should check it out. He looks great as a senior. He's obviously playing as a deep safety, but he is long. He is fast. He's a playmaker. Now, he has to learn how to play linebacker and be that. Well, that is obviously something there, but you can see the projectable traits for him to be a guy, right? Like you said, freaks list. Like, that is not a thing. Like Cahoon, same kind of thing. Also, Cahoon, like 200 tackles as a senior. Like, that's insane. Like, he's obviously a guy who's growing, and Xander Cruz. I mean, I keep bringing you up because you're always criticizing every single thing. Why didn't he get more offers? I mean, he did get offers after, but it's like when guys pick Notre Dame, it's like, is he looking for more? Are guys looking for more? Are they searching for more offers? If those guys are doing it, then sure. They're publishing their offers out there. How many guys are publishing their offers out there? Like, there's just not that many guys who are doing that unless they're kind of looking for it, which is why you didn't have the drama of all this too, where guys are like taking visits. And if guys want looking for something else, those guys get out. They do, right? They get out. So, I mean, I don't know. And the other thing is like, he's from Nebraska. Like, so he got a Nebraska offer. So what does it matter? And also, what does it matter who got offers if you like the player and you really, really like the player and you think this guy can?
And the question is, like, this staff has a better eye for talent. Never mind the rankings. Like, that's the question, right? So this is an example of that, right? Where they are saying, I don't know where the rankings are. I don't care what the even offers are. Like, we see where he can fit into our defense. And the Notre Dame's got a pretty good track record, right? I mean, they just had a top 10 defense, so you have to look at that. You have to say, okay, like, if they think that's a fit, then they think it's a fit, right? If you're talking about, like, think of the eyes on this person, right? You have Marcus Freeman look at him. You have Al Golden look at him. You have Max Bola look at him, right? Like, those are 3 guys that know the position. It's not like it's Mike Mickens, like or Chris O'Leary. Like, that Notre Dame has 3 guys who know how to evaluate linebackers and what they're looking for there. Which isn't to say like it's a hit, right? It's not a guarantee, but the point is, it's like you talked about. Like, if he hits, this is an NFL player, so that's what you want to go for. Like, you want to go for that type of a talent, and it helps when you have Drake Bowen and Jaden Osbury and KVA and Jalen Sneed all there, right? Like, they're all there. So it's like you can take chances here where it's like, hey, we have a spot where we just want an athlete. We just want a guy who can come in and has that high ceiling, right? And so that's where I think it helps, right? It helps definitely there. Jamie, let's just go through, right? So, quarterback, CJ Carr on campus already, going through practices. Where do you see him? It just in terms of, like, I'll tell you what I like about him a lot. I'll tell you what I like. I like the way he throws the ball, his throwing motion. And I've been talking about this kind of offline. All the top quarterbacks Notre Dame's taken, like the top 100 guys, right? Going back to Wimbush, going back to Phil, going back to Buckner. They throw the ball. It's just every time. It's
There's
like,
something funky going on. Yeah.
Why do you throw it like that? Every time I got to watch this film. It's like, what is throwing motion? CJ Carr, pretty throwing motion. He took charge of the class, and he was always on campus. He had that kind of alpha mentality there. And he's, like you said, he's a dual threat guy, but he's not like a runner. Like I would say kind of similar to like Deshaun Kaiser in that way, where it's like he's got a little bit of juice there, but like that's not going to be the main part of his game. But I just think he has that kind of a presence about him as well. And I think that really helps. And he's obviously very talented, right? Like he spins it nice, got a nice arm, he can make the throws. What is your take on CJ Carr?
I mean, I think that is an appropriate take in terms of just like he I've seen him throw in person,
Yeah.
and the ball comes out differently in a good way. Like I like you watch him, and okay, so at Irish Invasion in 2022, so last summer, not this recent summer, the summer before it, the trip that he was basically committed to Notre Dame on that trip. And there was a bunch of guys there. Obviously, Cam Williams, Jack Larsen was there. A lot of top guys competing there. And Georgia commit Ryan Pugliese, I think is how you pronounce his last name.
Pugliese?
Pugliese. Big arm, definitely big arm. But, and I don't want to say he didn't have like a bad throwing motion or anything like that, but he was trying like to rip it on every single one. And CJ Carr, I mean, it was coming in hot on a lot of throws without a lot of effort. Like he's just a natural thrower of the football. It's just mechanically, he is very sound. So, and that's something that's just to be straight up honest, because people always talk about this. It's like, well, the college coach got to do it. It's like, they don't really have time to work on mechanics as much as you like in the off season, sure. But like during the season, they're not like, okay, make sure you like all these little details. It's not like, that's not something they can spend a ton of time on. So that's why a lot of these guys have like private quarterback coaches, because they're trying to implement stuff to play. And this is what you got to do on this read and this and that. So you don't have to worry about that with CJ Carr. So that is obviously nice. But to me, the biggest thing is that he just has a feel for the rush, can escape the rush, and can make something out of nothing. Because I just think in today's game, Tom Brady, guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, those guys are just like essentially what those guys are. It's funny because game manager has become a big topic lately in football, because I think Cam Newton said something about game manager. But like those guys were game managers, really. They were just elite level at it. But there's just so few guys that are really just elite level. And maybe Carr can be that too. But it's like having that extra of being like, it's 3rd and 6. Man, you made the guy, offense coordinator made the call. You thought it was man. It's not.
Yeah.
It's zone. What you're seeing that first read, that's not there. Second read, it's not there. Rush is coming at you. Blitz, whatever. Like, what can you do with it? He's a guy who can still move the chains, because of that. And I just think that is so valuable. And that kind of goes back to that's absolutely what made Ian Book, the winningest quarterback at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And for all of his other faults and all the things that he wasn't good at, he could do that. So Carr has that plus way more polish as a passer. So I think he's absolutely an exciting pickup for Notre Dame. You never know with quarterbacks because you don't know. There's only one ball. There's only one guy who can play.
For sure.
How's it gonna work out? I mean, we'll see, because the quarterback room can change drastically over the next year to see where we're at. But I mean, as long as he's there, I expect him to compete for the starting job in 2025.
So the thing that sold me on CJ Carr is this playoff game last year, where I can't remember who it was against, but we saw the full game, and they could not. His team could not stop the other team's offense. Period. So it's like you have to score a ton. The other part is their team could not block up front to save their life. He was under constant pressure, and it's like you have to you have to fit the ball in the windows. You are going to be someone is going to be your face on every play, and it's just going to be it's just that's how it's going to be for this game. You have to fit the ball in the windows. You can't have a bad game. If you have anything close to a bad game, you're going to get beat. And he played. He's putting the ball in spots. He's making throws that are like, I'm fitting it over the defender. I was so impressed with him. I don't care what it looked like after that. Like, I didn't even need to see a senior film. Like, seeing that as a junior and just getting whooped. I mean, he was getting battered. I mean, and he kept coming back, making big time throw after big time throw. I was like, you know what? I'm all set. I don't need to see anything else. He was fantastic, and that's what sold me on him. And I think that just kind of befits, like, hey, this isn't a guy who stands back there in a clean pocket all the time and just picks people apart. Like, he is under pressure and he is getting it all the time, and he's able to perform in that situation. And if you can do that, then I'm sold on you as a prospect. Whatever the rest of it says, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I'm sold on him. I thought that was a great performance by him in a very big situation. 2 running backs for Notre Dame this year. Kedron Young out of Texas and Aeneas Williams out of Missouri. First of all, Kedron Young, I put him as most likely to contribute in College Station because of the running back thing. We saw it. Jeremiah Love, he came in right away, was a big-time player for Notre Dame. He was a big part of the Ohio State game, right? And obviously, that wasn't the opening game, but he played in the opener against Navy, so they had him ready to go. I think that he's a guy you just like, look, teach him some plays, put him in the game, and just you can have some carries, right? If something happens to
get a package for him, yeah.
Yeah, Jabron Payne or Jadarian Price or Jeremiah Love or whatever the situation may be, I think you could have a package and you could put him in the game. I think he's big time. I think he's a big time player. What do you say on Kedron Young, Jamie?
Yeah, I think one of the things with him is that he is big and physically ready to play right away. So that is huge, right? Where he can come in and be a guy who's physically ready to play. But I think like him getting compared to Audric Estime it's an apt comparison in terms of size, but like that move right there, the finish of him running a guy over, that's Audric. But that first initial move where he made that guy miss, and it's not like Audric can make some guys miss, but not like that. Like the shake and bake kind of stuff that he's got, his ability to kind of make people miss. Like he really has like exceptional lateral agility. And that's really, to me, and he can take it too. Like for his speed at that size is really, really impressive. So I really, really like him as a guy who can be like an RB1 type, a guy who can carry the load, but also be like a big play back as well. And man, I can't imagine where this guy is going to be a couple years from now physically too, right? Because he's already rocked up, and I mean it's exciting.
He's like more explosive Tony Jones. I've come around watching him. It's like, you know what? Like they move very similar, but like Kedron Young does like Tony Jones did not have these types of plays.
No, he didn't have the same juice. He didn't have the same juice.
Not even close.
But that was my comp for him, was more explosive Tony Jones. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think like I think that's what it is. I like you said, his lateral agility, his ability to inside the hole kind of shake defenders, which is like, that's everything, right? Because you're operating in small spaces all the time. I mean, just like right there, like making a little cut, the little cuts that get him out in the open and free. And then he's able to take it to the house, right? He's got that long speed there that you want to see as well. So I just think that translates to getting on the field early, right? And that's why I said like I could see him having an impact. We don't see a ton from him in the passing game, but then that's okay because Notre Dame picked up Aeneas Williams, who had 44 catches this year. So he was a big time player in the passing game for his high school. 44 catches. I think he had 46 total touchdowns, 1,600 yards rushing. So he's like, since he's from Missouri, there's a lot of the Kyron Williams stuff. I don't know if I necessarily see that, but that doesn't really, I don't really have to see that, right? Like he's a good player. He fits the kind of versatile running back that Notre Dame likes to have. And so for the two of them, I think it's a really good 1-2 punch there.
Yeah, I think skill set wise, he is similar just in terms of just like that kind of ability to be like this guy could play the slot too, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. From that sense, yeah. But I mean, I think Kyren Williams had like something special about him as like a guy who could run through tackles at that size, and his like a toughness factor, just ability to gain yards after contact. That, I mean, if Williams has that, I mean, that's fantastic. But I don't know if I wouldn't put him on that same stratosphere of that. And that's one of the things that kind of made Kyren as unique as he was. But Aeneas is a very, very good prospect. And I want to mention that he was a guy who worked out at camp for Notre Dame, and he was someone that, and this is too, when you're talking about offers and we're talking about where guys, how they view guys, why didn't this guy get more offers, whatever. Well, he was a guy who went and had like no offers at the time, basically, when he started to go out to camps. And he went to camp at Oregon, and they offered him right there. He went to Alabama. They're like, here's an offer. So, and then he went to Notre Dame and got his offer, right? So he went and was going around the country and getting offers. And that's how he got his offers. But Teddy Rizak didn't do that. So there's guys who don't do that. But one of the reason why Notre Dame was sold on Teddy Rizak, they went and saw him work out during the May evaluation period and had testing on him that was done. We're sold on him. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that I think what this staff, I mean, obviously film, all that kind of stuff is part of it. Right. And that's a big part of it. But if you look at CJ Carr, Cam Williams, Bryce Young, Aeneas Williams, Jack Larsen, Bronte Johnson, Micah Gilbert, who else here? And Saldate didn't work out on campus.
Oh, you're talking about, okay.
Yeah. Tabron Benny Powell, and technically Anthony Knapp too, even though he didn't work out at Notre Dame's camp, he worked out for Joe Rudolph at Virginia Tech's camp. And that is how he saw him in person. So they had on campus workouts. So there's a lot of guys, and that's what you're seeing for this class too. It's a lot of it is in-person evaluation. So you're well, why didn't this guy? Maybe he didn't go to this other camp, and maybe he didn't, whatever. Maybe he didn't check the list off of from what other. Maybe they don't value it as much, but this staff values that a lot. But in saying that, as you mentioned with Saldate, that's a perfect example of they lost Isaiah Canyon in the class, who I don't know if anyone watches film. I think he's an exciting athlete.
I can't talk about it. I can't.
He's very talented.
I can't talk about it.
He's very, very talented. And but Saldate, one of the things that when they were looking for, they sent out and they said, we want to see these certain things before you get an offer. And he did all of these things in terms of film workout stuff for him. And that's why he got his offer. Right. And in addition to, his film and all that kind of stuff too. Right.
Yeah.
So all of these things, when you look at that kind of stuff and Rizak and all these different things, there's different reasons why guys get offers. But Aeneas Williams, when, and I saw him in person at Irish Invasion too, he just has the kind of savvy to him as a receiver that I think is really going to, help him have a role no matter what.
Yeah.
And whether he becomes, the bell cow that Kyren Williams was for Notre Dame, to TBD, but he has this skill set that he's going to help and find a role. And that's just extremely valuable to have. And maybe he can be more. Obviously, the guy's scored 1 million touchdowns, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, Jabron Payne has a role with Audric Estime on the team. Like, think about like all of the talent Notre Dame has in the backfield, but Jabron Payne carved out a role. Why? Because he can do the types of things that they would want Aeneas Williams to do. And I think Aeneas Williams can be a more explosive, more natural version of that, right? And so that's like it's so easy to project him onto the team and into the lineup, like you said. And it's good to have a role just straight up like right away, where it's like, and then you could build off that, like Kyron did. You know what I mean? Like Kyron, it's like he had a role, but then it was like, you know what? He actually do everything. Just keep him out there all the time. And that could be Aeneas Williams. We don't know, but at least he has a defined role on the team. It's easy to see how he fits onto the roster. Wide receiver, obviously Cam Williams is the headliner. Micah Gilbert, also from North Carolina, and then Logan Saldate. I think we've talked a lot more recently about Saldate and what he brings, and just the fact that he's got the speed. He's very good after the catch, and he's explosive. He's good at the point of attack in terms of catch point. He has good ball skills that way, and he's really just increased like his explosiveness deep. And so they don't have the size athlete that that Isaiah Canyon was, but they do have what they wanted in that explosiveness and getting deep and being able to get behind the defense. So that's good. Cam Williams is obviously a star. Best wide receiver prospect since Michael Floyd. I think that's kind of the thinking around the Notre Dame beat on him. But Micah Gilbert, it kind of flies under the radar there, Jamie. And where he fits, I think he's a good boundary guy. And for a boundary guy, he's got a lot of good run after catch there that you don't really see from someone his size. Let's talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It really stands out about him because obviously, Notre Dame has been looking at boundary receivers in the portal, and they landed one in Bo Collins. And here you see Gilbert. Obviously, he's taking it to the house here. But Bo Collins and Jamal Banks, and I would say that was the thing with them, is that they have certain things that they do well as a boundary, but those guys they can't make plays after the catch. They can make that kind of play where they're like going to go up for it and high point the football. They can do that, but Gilbert's got a little bit more. It's almost like kind of probably closer to like a Jaden Thomas, I would say, just in terms of like, this guy's big. He's got more wiggle for a big guy than you would expect. And I mean, obviously it's a need, right? Like they really need Micah Gilbert to hit. They do. They need him to hit because, they've had a bunch of guys like that haven't hit on the boundary, right? Like basically since Chase Claypool, they haven't had a guy that, I guess McKinley, whatever, would be the last guy, right? McKinley would be the last guy who was like hit on the boundary for them. And they haven't really had anyone since then out of like the bigger receivers. And a lot of that is obviously failings in recruiting and evaluation. But some of it's just bad luck, but just, if you look at it, that is something that they've been missing, and they really, really need him to be a guy. But now that he doesn't have to be a guy right away because you have a Bo Collins on the team, right? And, whether or not Deion Colsey stays or not, or if you end up getting Jamal Banks, great. But, like, he doesn't have to be forced on the field right away before he's ready, like some of these other guys. And he has a chance to develop, because I think once a guy is, has like about like a couple years in the weight room, like he's going to be a big dude, and he's got, more to him with that kind of size. So, and that's one of the things that kind of like made Claypool so good.
Yeah. I think I don't think it can be understated how much it matters that these young guys, Cam Williams and Gilbert and Saldate, like they can come in, and at the very least, like Gilbert's going to get to see, okay, Bo Collins, this is how you play. This is how you play boundary receiver at a major college level. Like Bo Collins has a ton of snaps. He's played against a ton of great teams, like great corners, right? Great defenders. This is how you play. This is how it's supposed to look like. Chris Mitchell. This is how you play the field, right? This is how you play receiver. And in the slot too. Like, but Jaden Thomas is there. right? And Jaden Greathouse, like he got a ton of snaps last year. Like those guys all know how to play major college football against major competition. And it's just such a benefit for the young guys to get that, right? If you earn it and you show something, then good. Then you can go play because you've seen how it's got to look like, right? And someone brought it up with the linebackers too, like Jack Kaiser coming back. Like it's enormous. It means a lot to younger players to see how the older players operate and how they go through their business. I love this. I love this wide receiver group. I do. I think it's exactly what Notre Dame needed. I think they targeted the right kind of guys, especially when you look at the types of players that they had last year and what they have coming back. I just think it's super important to me, and I think they had a great. It's a great class. You know, maybe they could have taken one more, maybe, but I think that the only thing you could do is you can make a case that, like, if you had Canyon, like maybe you would have, if you saw Saldate later, I would take both of them, but that's not how it worked out. So it doesn't really matter. They didn't have a choice to take all four. But I really like this receiver class, Jamie. And then that goes included in that is the tight end, Jack Larsen from Charlotte, North Carolina. I think of him similar to Flanagan. I think I think of him kind of in the same way. Not that they are exactly the same, but I think he's just like a very good receiver, right? Like he's a great receiver. I think he knows how to run routes. I think he knows how to catch the ball, high point the ball. He knows how to fight for the ball. Maybe the blocking isn't where you want it to be, but I think as a receiver coming in, he's going to learn that stuff. So I think he's a good addition to the class. What's your take on Jack Larsen? Sorry.
Yeah. So I think the one of the reasons why Larsen was kind of a little bit, there was a decline in his overall ranking was because he's just not that big, and he's never going to be that big. Right. So that's the thing. He's never going to be like a true inline guy. And so in that sense, I get it, like, and I can understand it, but I think he's one of my favorite prospects in the class. And if I didn't see him in person, then it probably wouldn't be, he probably wouldn't have been, but he was there also at Irish Invasion in 2022. And they had a lot of tight ends there that were like looking for offers. And, Christian Bedeker, who I went into that camp thinking Christian Bedeker, I'm like, this guy's bigger and better than Jack Larsen. Yeah. And then I watched that camp and I was like, Jack Larsen, like, basically stole this guy's lunch money. Like during that camp, like he was so much better than Bedeker that I almost think Bedeker might have been like intimidated by being like, hey, I'm not at this level, and and I think that's like the thing with him is that he's going to be an H-back type, a flex tight end, right? He's going to be a guy who does his work in the slot, but he really is a really great athlete, and he knows how to play receiver and knows how to get open, knows how to separate, and has this really good short area quickness. And I think that's the thing that really stands out, is that he can really be great as a receiver. And that's really where he kind of has to be, because he's never going to be, I think he'll always be a willing blocker, but he's not going to be the guy. You know what I mean?
He just won't be big enough.
He just won't be big enough. He just won't be big enough. Maybe he gets to 240 or something like that, but probably not. Like the guy that I think he actually reminds me of is a guy at Utah, Brant Keith, and it's K-U-I-T-H-E, but I believe it's Keith, how it's pronounced. And he is a smaller guy. He's 6'2", 229. Larsen's going to be a bit bigger than that ultimately, but not much. But watch him, and he, like, before Dalton Kincaid, he was Dalton Kincaid for Utah. He just had a bad knee injury, and that is the exact same kind of thing where you're like, man, I don't know who's going to cover him, because linebackers and safeties, I think, are going to have a tough time matching up with them. Now, Notre Dame had a guy who was kind of like that in Kane Barong, and he never really could see the field because he couldn't get into the mix. But I saw Kane Barong in person too, and Larsen is a better athlete, a much better athlete than Kane Barong was. So I think that's ultimately what's going to separate him. And I think with what they have at tight end, I mean, they obviously have a bunch of like big dudes who can play in line, but also be receivers. Like, to me, Mitchell Evans, Cooper Flanagan, and Eli Raridan, pretty similar skill sets with all of those guys. They're just big guys who can play in line and be like, an attached tight end, but they can also flex out and win and do these other things too, where he's going to be different. And I think that's actually a good thing. I think that might be a good thing. And I think he's kind of being slept on a little bit. It's weird for Notre Dame to sign a 4-star tight end and for that guy to like kind of go under the radar, but I think he has a chance to be a pretty good player.
I remember he dominated the camp that he was at with, and it was like him and CJ Carr were just absolutely cooking. And that's like, well, he's obviously going to be in the class. Like him and the quarterback are just like lighting it up, right?
Yeah.
So like it made sense right there. And so that's my thing. And he's just some really good film as well. His film looks good as a receiver. So it's good, and it's good to have a player like him, right? Like the person playing that position now is kind of a Davis Sherwood, and obviously you'd rather have Jack Larsen, right? No, no offense to Davis Sherwood, but you'd rather have someone like Jack Larsen in that spot. It opens up so much more for you in the passing game there. 4 offensive linemen for Notre Dame this year. We talked about Gerby Lambert, right? So he's kind of the star of the O-line class. And then you have Styles Prescott, who you're very high on. Again, you loved his film. And I think those two, like, it's nice that they project as the tackles, right? Like you want your tackles projected into the class. And that really worked out for Notre Dame, especially because like the team has a need there kind of going forward. And then you have Anthony Knapp, who's kind of like a swing player, like could play tackle, could play guard, could play center. Like he could play any position on the offensive line. And then you have Peter Jones, who's like more of an interior guy. So I want to focus a little bit more on Knapp and Jones here, because I think there's been a lot of discussion about Prescott and Lambert, but not as much on those two players, Jamie. How do you project those guys, and what do you think that they can be to this recruiting class?
I really like Knapp. I
know you like Knapp. You liked him right away, right when he committed.
I like Knapp. I mean, the question is just going to be like, how big does he get?
Yeah,
that is going to be the ultimate thing with him. But he's a really good athlete, and he is nasty. Like, he wants to finish guys. He has the right mentality for it. He's a guy who's clearly serious about football and about like getting bigger. I don't know if people have seen like any of the clips of this guy on the bench and kind of what he can do. He is a strong kid. And if you watch a film of him too, he's long. Like, so he is not one of these guys who's like, oh, I don't know if he is like, he's long. If anything, I would say maybe his like little bit like slimmer in the hips that you would kind of want for a tackle. But that was like Robert Hainsey too, because I remember seeing Robert Hainsey in person for the first time at the opening back in whenever the heck he was at the opening. Can't remember the year. It's all blended in now, but he was there, and it was like there was a ton of guys there at that time, that Notre Dame was recruiting, like comparing him to say like Jedrick Wills, and who ended up going to Alabama, who Notre Dame really liked. And there was no comparison size wise. Like, it was like, oh, like, I'm like, oh man, I don't know how Hainsey's going to do here. Cause it was like, he was that much smaller, whatever. Yeah. But Hainsey did well at that camp. And obviously he's a guy that was really like advanced and was helped by being like, I mean, he started at left tackle for IMG. So I mean, considering all the guys that they had, like, I mean, I think that says a lot about the kind of like talent that Hainsey had and his feet and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I see Knapp is kind of a similar in the, like, he's in the Hainsey, Jarrett Patterson mold of like, this guy can play multiple positions. He can kind of move around. If he's 300 pounds, he's going to be a starter for Notre Dame and a pretty good one. So it's just, to me, it's all about the physical development for me with him, because I really, really like him as a player. And it just, that is, to me, the bottom line with him.
Yeah. And then Peter Jones.
Oh yeah, Peter Jones. So Peter Jones, I mean, early commitment. No, and it's guard is not a sexy position. It's not a thing like, other than Quentin Nelson, guys do not, get hyped up as guards, right? Like, it's just not a thing. And he's a guy who I think is a guard only, or like an interior prospect only. I don't think he's going to play tackle. One, I don't think you have to worry about it, because I think, you got two other guys who are definite tackles, and I think Knapp could possibly play tackle too. So you don't really have to worry about it in the class. But he's a big dude. Like, he's already like college ready almost with his size, but he's going to have to get stronger and reshape his body and all that kind of stuff. But he moves really, really well for a guard, and just ability to get to the second level, ability to kind of bend and finish. I think he's a really, really solid prospect, and a guy who has a chance to become a multi-year starter for Notre Dame.
Yeah, good offensive line class. I think they definitely needed Gerby Lambert to kind of solidify it, and they got it. So it really helped out there. And so it's a good class. Like, and that kind of rounds up the offense. Like, I just think the offense, I think, needed some an infusion of talent, and like just kind of upside. Like, they needed upside. They didn't. They've gotten a lot of like just kind of steady players, good players. And like Jeremiah Love, like was an upside guy. And I think that, with Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores last year, who's no longer on the roster, but like those guys, they're steady guys, right? Like, but this year I feel like with Cam, with Saldate and CJ Carr and Micah Gilbert, like those guys, like that's the upside that you're looking for. And so I think Notre Dame got that upside. They got the upside at the two tackles. And then they've got some steady players as well. Aeneas Williams, Kedron Young. Kedron Young, like, he's up there, like, right around top 100 in the composite, right? Like, so
yeah,
he's really jumped. Like, he's made a big jump there. And so that's a big addition for Notre Dame on the offense. Rajon asked, are we going to hear any thoughts on the strength coach? I think we'll get to that in another show. We're just going to focus on. But Jamie also he's got to get in touch with his cousin. His cousin's got some phone problems, Jamie. It's got. Of all the times,
it's too long of a story to get into.
It's too long
of
a story. We got phone problems. It's he's got it. We got to figure something out there. But pretty soon, and just a heads up that Marcus Freeman's going to be addressing the media, so I'll have some updates for that. I'll be monitoring. I'll be monitoring the Twitter machine. We'll give some updates on Marcus Freeman's comments. Tyler Buckner with a tweet, Jamie. I'm excited to return to Notre Dame to play lacrosse and graduate in May. Prior to that, I'll be continuing my initial commitment to Alabama football through the playoff and finishing what I started. Can't thank everyone enough for their continued support. Okay. That's what's going to happen. Tyler Buckner. Back at Notre Dame. So, okay, Jamie, let's move over to the defense. Start on the defensive line. I think the main thing, someone talked about it before in the chat about the lack of an interior guy next to Sevano. I think that's a fair take. But you got Logan Thomas, you've got Bryce Young, you've got Cole Mullins, who people forget about because he hurt his knee. So he's been out for most of his senior season. So you have those defensive ends to go along with Sevano in the middle. Do you feel like they needed that D tackle inside next to him?
Like, in addition to what they got in the class?
Yeah.
I think it would have been nice if they could have got like the kid they were trying to flip from Georgia. I think that would have been big, actually, in the class. So if that, what I would say is probably I absolutely fair criticism of the class is that they could have used another guy there. At the same time, you don't want to Mike Elston it and just take a body to take a body, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden that guy gets stuck on the roster and he's never going to play,
Yeah.
So I just don't think that would be the right way to do it. And they could have done that, and I was smart not to do that. They focus on who they focus on. Now it just means that, like, I think in this next class, like, you got to get it, because it just, and they're hard to find, right? They're hard to find. But I mean, there was a lot of focus on Justin Scott. I think we all know now, Justin Scott, there was zero chance he would have ever ended up at Notre Dame.
Nope.
Right? He would have never ended up at Notre Dame. I mean, he was always going to end up at a place like Miami, right? And I mean,
it was always going to end up there. He flipped.
Yes,
that's what it was. It was like whatever it was. He like Ohio State. No way he was ending up there. It just in terms of the way that it was trending the whole time.
And if 2 years he's at Illinois, would not be shocked. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the kind of thing. Like, there's guys when there's just red flags early. A lot of times, sometimes it does. Sometimes those guys overcome the red flags, and that's great. It's always a great story when that happens. Most of the time they don't. So we'll see.
He didn't work out. But so what's the tell me about we've talked some about Bryce Young, big time player, we think. It's a big addition to the class. Cole Mullins, I think it's kind of hard because he had the knee injury, so we haven't seen any film on him. Yeah. And it's like you wanted to. He was a guy kind of like Carson Hobbs and Leonard Moore, where it's like you wanted to see that senior film. You didn't get to see it. And so now it's like, how is he going to come back from the injury? What kind of player is he going to be? Was he able to grow off of his junior year? I mean, he played in one of the top leagues in Georgia, right? So it's like he's playing against quality competition there. Right. So he's playing on a great team. So it's just going to be kind of wait and see on him. What's your Logan Thomas? How do you feel about him?
Logan Thomas. Oh, I should just CFB Hertz asked about Owen Waffle. I would have kept Waffle in the class. Just my opinion. Would have kept him. I think with Sevano and him, I think that would have been fine.
It was kind of a debate too about whether Waffle was waffling, right? I think it wasn't totally clear at the end, right? Like, was he starting to look like, was he indicating he wanted to go on other visits, and Notre Dame was like, well, maybe just get out of the class and go do that. Like, it's kind of hard to know the chicken and egg story there. So anyway, continue. Logan Thomas.
So Logan Thomas and Rajon Mullen's injury was a knee injury, so he had a knee, so he's out for the season. I mean, it doesn't sound like knee injuries today. It's unless it's like a Jalen Smith, like you blow out the nerves in your thing. I'm sure he can come back healthy and be fine, but it's just he loses a year of development. Really is the main thing. But he's enrolling early, so we'll see where he's at. If I don't know if he'll be participating in the spring or not, but we'll see. We'll see where he's at. But Logan Thomas, man, I think he's got really exciting athleticism. Like, the flashes from him are awesome. Like, he has got just exceptional, like, first step quickness, ability to bend, to get around the edge. I think with him, it's just like he still has to do a lot of physical development because he's still skinny, he's thin. It actually reminds me a ton of Julian Okwara. And like, he's going to have to add weight, put in the work there. And the one thing with Okwara too was like he lacked consistency at the beginning, and that was like until he kind of hit that later on. That's why he never really kind of like fully untapped what he was. But when it happened, and it was boom. So that's the thing that I think with Thomas is that, like, man, he's got a chance to be like big boom if he does it. So like, in that sense, he can be a fantastic Viper for Notre Dame. But I think he's going to come in. It's going to take time. He's going to need to learn how to use his hands to play against a run, to set the edge. He's got to get way stronger. But his like athletic talent in terms of his pass rush ability, like his ceiling as a pass rusher is sky high. It's sky high. So, And I think the fact that they have like, Boubacar Traore in the class ahead of him, and that is a good thing for him. And there's not going to be pressure for him to be a guy anytime soon. So he should really benefit from a redshirt year. I think, I'm excited to kind of see where he is like a year from now, once he kind of like gets into, Notre Dame system.
Yeah. I mean, Sevano, right? Like, I think he's a pretty big deal in terms of like what they need him to be. And I think the senior film kind of showed, like, look, the kid's a good athlete. Like, the kid's a good mover. He shows good like twitch inside, some violence there. He's a big kid, right? He's very big. So that fits the profile of what they needed. But like, not getting someone like Waffle next to him kind of increases the need for him to be a player.
He needs to hit. Yeah.
So they need him to hit. So what is your confidence level that, like, yeah, this is a guy that's definitely is going to hit for Notre Dame?
I mean, the confidence is higher in terms of just because you just see his motor.
Yeah.
And guys with that kind of motor, they work, like he's going to work to get better. Like, and so that's the thing, that I'm pretty confident he's going to be something for Notre Dame. But in saying that, he's going to need to work because he's got he's heavy right now, and doesn't need to be as heavy as he is. He needs to get into better shape, and that's, going to happen. He's always going to be like a big guy, but he doesn't need to be like, I think in the spring he was like 320, 330, but it's not like a good 320. Like, he can be like 300s, and that can be like a good weight for him. He's a strong kid, but he needs to learn how to use his hands more consistently. When you see it, you're like, whoa, he's got something there, but he exposes his chest too much. These are all very normal things for guys, especially who can just physically dominate. And he's gonna, man, what a huge benefit for him to be around Howard Cross, because that's a guy he can totally, like, he should be Howard Cross's shadow and just learn so much from him in terms of just hand usage and just way to work, and being that guy who can be quick and make plays in terms of like penetrating, but also play good at the point of attack and have that too. But I think really what, his ceiling is going to be determined by, he has like exceptional lateral quickness for a guy that size. Like, you just don't see it. And the thing is too, is like, there's some guys who like can get up the field, but they could shoot a gap, but if they got to like redirect, it's over and they're not making the tackle. There's far too many of those guys in football, just in general, for defensive linemen. And he can do that. He can redirect. He is a good athlete. Like, I just imagine if it's like you're playing pickup, something like that, he's a guy who can go and like, he's the guy setting picks and all of a sudden like just throwing behind the back passes or something like that. He just has that kind of vibe to him in terms of how he moves. And
it's like, how is he doing this?
Yes. Yeah.
So big.
When you see those, like, those videos or whatever, you're like, look, I mean, who thought this guy or whatever? The last pick here, and all of a sudden the guy's just making fadeaways. I mean, he has that kind of vibes of him as an athlete. And I thought like he definitely got better as a senior, and in the right way. I still think, like, man, I don't know what the heck is weird defensive coordinator stuff that they're doing, like just early down shooting gaps. And I think like some of these teams that they're playing are just like overwhelmed by some of what, they're like, why is there no one lined up on this side? They're overloading the side completely, and they're completely overwhelmed. Like, that's not going to be the kind of, scheme that he plays in there. But in terms of a guy who is a nose with like plus pass rush ability, like, he's an exciting prospect. And like, his quickness and him getting in shape and all that. That is good. Like getting in shape is going to be huge for him because
Yeah.
he's not long. He's not long. So he has to be quick feet, quick hands. And that's essentially Howard Cross. If he can do that and kind of be there, and I would say even like Keys is probably a better athlete than Howard Cross. And so, I mean, it's going to be exciting to see where he is. I think it'll probably take him some time, but you know, he's definitely got a shot.
Drunk Vigo's going in on the hype video. He's been on the hype video for like the past 40 minutes. It just watch it. Go watch it. It's on the Notre Dame Twitter official Twitter page. They did a nice little video. They're all like he's talking about vaults, unimaginable treasure inside the vaults. It's all the players.
I thought it was a pretty cool video.
It's a cool video. It's a cool
video.
They
did a good job.
It just goes to show the importance of video for any quality thing that you want to put out. And if you want a video that's similar to that, head over to VSRMediaCompany.com. It's founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at VSRMediaCompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. And, okay. Marcus Freeman, just some comments from the press conference, Jamie. He has no timeline on the OC. So he's going to do a national search. Also, they're going to look at Gino Guidugli. He made reference to it's unique because the Jared Parker was a tight end coach. So it's a little bit. He's basically hinting. I need to find someone. Who could it be, Jamie? Yeah. I need to find someone who is offensive coordinator, who maybe coaches tight ends. Who could that be? Right? Hint, hint. So, I think Marcus Freeman says he doesn't have a timeline. I think Marcus Freeman says things in press conferences, unfortunately, that you just kind of throw them away, right? Like the other day, he says the roster is final. It's set. Everyone who hasn't announced is playing. And then they have practice and like, oh, by the way, Thomas Harper's not playing in the bowl game, right? Like, so it just, we'll see. Watch the space as far as the offensive coordinator goes. Yeah. And then some other things about the strength and conditioning coach. He looked at over 30 candidates for that. He's very excited about him. He's talking about the NIL cycle. Our collective, the fund, has been tremendous. They've been committed to making sure this program continue to compete for national championships. Look, Notre Dame stepped up in the NIL space, not specifically for high school kids, but for the athletes that are on campus now, and especially with grad transfers or transfers in and things of that nature. And look, it's de facto going to the recruits as well. They will eventually be on the roster, and they will be able to take advantage of Notre Dame's NIL operation. So they've stepped up, right? I think what everyone wanted from the university and the admin, or not admin, but the operation involved with Notre Dame football, they wanted Notre Dame to step up there, and they have done so. So I think that's been a good situation for Notre Dame. On to the linebackers. So they've got Bodie Cahoon in fold. Obviously, Kingston KVA is the headliner there. We think he's going to be an absolute star. You've got Teddy Rizak, who's there, and then you kind of have, and we'll put. Why don't we put Kennedy Urlacher in this space too? Because we don't know where that's going at this moment. We've kind of thought about him when he initially signed. Thought he could be a linebacker. I don't know how big he is, right, in terms of size, right? So like Bodie Cahoon, Teddy Rizak, those are tall guys, right? Like they're going to be able to put on weight. Kenny Urlacher's sitting there 6'1". He's not as big as all that. But where do you see Bodie Cahoon to me seems more like a Will linebacker guy who could eventually grow into Viper, I guess, right? I think that I mean you could see them all growing into Vipers. Like now, like Junior Tuli Halamaka is a Viper, and definitely didn't see that coming as a recruit. So you don't know where that can go. But how do you see these guys fitting into the program, Jamie?
Yeah, I think that's a good point on Cahoon, because I easily could kind of see that with him.
Like kind of Josh Burnham
Yeah,
ish.
yeah. And just like a really kind of like a twitchy athlete too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can kind of see it, and he's 6'3", like he's not short, like he's got like the kind of measurables that could translate to it. Man, I think his first year at linebacker, he kind of switched like halfway through the year at as a junior. And so that was like kind of a big question about him, and like where he how he looked, because it was like he was clearly like a see ball, get ball guy. And I thought he really grew as a linebacker, which is to be expected. And like, now you're getting your first full year there, where you could just kind of see him. He still shined as an athlete in terms of like making plays on the perimeter. Like the guy made like just so many tackles on the perimeter that were just incredibly impressive, where he's just running guys down, where you're like, okay, this is like a big reason why he's going to Notre Dame, because he's a great athlete, right? But you also see him like, work through the trash and like stay patient, knowing like not to over pursue, and just, like slow flow play linebacker, which was impressive. And I think has real ability in coverage in terms of athleticism. Obviously, he's like a big time lacrosse player as well. So he's a fluid athlete. A guy that I mean, linebackers typically, other than like a KVA type, like there's not too many guys that can be ready right away. Like even like I would say Drake Bowen was like a pretty advanced guy coming in, and he wasn't, I would say, not quite ready to play right away to be like a main guy. I mean, I think this next year he is going to be ready, and this year has probably helped him a lot. But so linebackers, you don't have to expect Cahoon to be a guy. So he might not be a guy. I mean, he's definitely not going to be a guy in year one. Might not be a guy in year two, and he maybe even moves to Viper, like you said. But projectable wise, you could see the athleticism and all these things that he has in his game, that, man, he could be a heck of a player.
It's hard with the linebackers because there's really only two spots.
Yeah.
Like, because they are playing nickel all the time.
Yeah.
So like,
I don't see them ever going. I know, because sorry to interrupt you, Greg, but like,
good.
I don't see them. Like I saw somebody somewhere said something like, well, now is next year is like Notre Dame going to be like more of a rover team again? I'm like, no, they're never. They're never going to be a rover team again. I don't think ever. Like that's not where the game is going. You play too many teams that have like a jitterbug slot out there all the time, and you just can't. Why would you play against that? Like, unless, and teams don't run power spread anymore. That's not a thing where like you have Tim Tebow, like back there. That's not a thing anymore. Teams spread to run in a way that's different, and you're better off getting a guy like a Harper who can come down and bang and be like a good tackler. But you don't need the size. You need him to be able to cover a slot and do all these things that you need, be able to blitz and do all these other things too. So I just don't see that rover ever becoming a thing. So that's the thing with Teddy Rizak. It's like, well, we project him at rover. It's like, well, he's either going to be an inside linebacker or not, like, because he's just,
The thing is, Notre Dame, like they do have like sub packages where you could see it fitting, right? Like Jalen Sneed is a guy who's like, he's in sub packages a lot, right? And you could see that, but it's like on a down to down basis, like it's hard to project because of the fact that because a guy I like a lot and I think is good is like Preston Zinter, right? I think he's good. I do. I think he's a good football player, but like is to play over eventually Jay Nosbury or Drake Bowen,
Yeah.
And then eventually KVA, right? Who it's like those guys are just going to be on the field all the time. We've got a lot of guys, right? So that's the thing with the linebackers. You could if you could see okay, I could see Bodie Cahoon being a Will. I could see Teddy Rizak being a Will, or maybe some kind of a special kind of defense that Notre Dame doesn't have. But is he going to be like a 50, 60 snap guy? I don't know, right? But then that's not really our problem to figure out, right? They're good athletes. Get them into this school and see how it works out.
Okay, so it's interesting you brought up, and you could see all these guys doing it, and I think that is part of the value of these guys that isn't taken into account when you're looking at specifically recruiting rankings, right? In general, and it's obviously they got high recruiting rankings. It's a top 10 class. Most of these guys are 4 or 5 stars, right? So it's not like that's a thing, but you can kind of see where. I think specifically with a lot of these places too, when they're ranking guys, they want it to be like, well, this guy's an outside linebacker and that's it, because he fits and he's the 10th rated outside linebacker in the country. Well, that's not the best thing to translate to modern defense, because versatility matters. Ability to do multiple jobs, that really matters. And that's valued. So that's like Sean Crawford. One of the reasons why Sean Crawford was a super valuable player for Notre Dame was because this guy could play outside corner. He can play nickel. He can play safety. He can do all of these things. Mm-hmm. The reason why Kyle Hamilton is like one of the most valuable players in the NFL right now and was super valuable at Notre Dame was like, well, guess what? We need a single high safety. He can play single high. Well, we need you to come down to the box. Well, you're going to be the robber in when you're a true freshman on this 3 safety look on 3rd down. And guess what? You're going to get a ton of picks that way. Yeah. Like, he can do all these things, right? And that kind of versatility is so valuable. And I was listening to a podcast with Chris Long and Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, where he was talking about how that position versatility, and that goes for guys on the defensive line who can this guy can play 5 tech. He can also go down and play 1 tech, you have a Viper who can, you have a guy who can rush the passer on 3rd down, but he can also go and cover. He can run with the tight end down the seam. He can do this. He can do that. That's part of the reason that Maris Leofau was so valuable, but you have to use those guys in that way for it to have the value. And I think that's one of the things. Obviously, Al Golden and Lou Anarumo, they're on the same page. They've worked together for years, right? But that is part of the value of all those guys and what they can do. And you're kind of seeing that with this class and some of these other guys in the 2025 class too, is that position versatility. And this guy could be this or he could be that. And it's having all that different things and kind of fitting a scheme around that and you being able to adapt to what other teams can do on offense because you have a guy who can do all these different things. That is gold. That is such gold. And I think as we're kind of talking about the defensive class in general, and sorry to kind of turn it into a bigger picture thing, but it really, as you look at it and you look at some of the guys, like you mentioned that, there's obviously the top guys like Bryce Young, KVA, those are the top guys in the class, but there's other guys who are low. But even look at Bryce Young and KVA, part of what makes them so valuable is these guys can do multiple things.
Right.
I think Bryce Young, he might be a 3 tech. He might be, right? Or at least be a 3 tech on 3rd downs, right? So that's all part of it. And I think, you look at guys like Rizak, you look at Cahoon, et cetera, what's his face? Urlacher, right?
Yeah.
Urlacher, I think that's the one thing too, is why, first of all, Urlacher, man, can we get a little bit more film there from Kennedy Urlacher? Would love to see more.
It's unacceptable. You're college player. I guess it doesn't matter because you're committed, so it's fine.
It doesn't matter. He's going to Notre Dame. What does he care? But it would be nice for us and everybody else involved who doesn't have access to it.
Come on.
But yeah.
Hit up VSR Media.
Yeah. But honestly, though, that's kind of the thing where, like, it's really kind of intriguing with him. Yeah. And I guess it's kind of, now we can kind of transition. Well, look at that seg from me and what I'm learning from you, Greg.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So love to see it.
I get why, you know, I'm not like the highest on him. He's got the lowest grade out of anyone in the class for me. Right. But as I watch, like, the little bit that I did have, I'm like, there's stuff I like about him. Yeah. And there's ways that I think he can be used. And I'm kind of excited to kind of see what player he's going to be and what role he's going to have and what he could maybe do. Because, man, he is long. He is downhill, accelerating fast. He's physical. Like, I could see him being like a weapon as a blitzer. I could see him, like, you know how they wanted to play DJ Brown in that, what was it, the Aztec position or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
But DJ Brown might have been the guy who knew the role and could do that, but he's not the perfect guy for that, right?
Right.
Maybe Urlacher is the perfect guy for that, right? Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe Adon Schuler is the perfect guy for that, because I could see Adon Schuler really, like, I would love to see him blitz and just whatever. Like, so there's all these kind of things that, like, I'm intrigued by Urlacher and kind of what he could do and what he could be, even if he's not a deep safety and not a true safety.
Yeah. I think so. This gets into like this. This is like an hour-long conversation in itself of like the concept of positionless football, especially on defense. Like, there's such, like, I've seen so many things about that recently, just in the trend of defense and where it's going. It's like basically you have guys in roles that don't really have defined positions. And so I think Urlacher and Rizak specifically fit that description of guys who can play that way. And so that's where it's interesting, right? Like, and that's where, like, you really want to, like, kind of see where Al Golden is taking this defense. If, you know, hopefully he doesn't get a job offer with the NFL and he moves on. But like, those guys fit that, right? It's like, I don't know specifically, like, you try to project Urlacher or Rizak into like a specific position that Notre Dame has, and you think it's kind of tough, especially with Urlacher.
Yeah.
It's like, what's he going to do? Right. Like, I don't know. But there are, like you said, there are things about him. It's like, nah, I kind of like that. I like that being on the roster, right? I like that kind of player being around, but I don't know where he's fit specifically. And so that's kind of where it is with him.
Just wanted to mention, I just saw that Paul Menke flipped to Washington.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Was he Duke this whole time?
I mean,
well, I guess that makes sense.
I mean, obviously there was different stuff, but I mean, he did love those go-karts. So
he loved the go-karts. And look, good defensive back, right? Washington knows what they're looking for in terms of DBs.
Oh, I mean, I liked Menke. I think he would have been, So, yeah, I mean, I would say also too, I mean, I haven't been to, you know, that area of North Carolina. So I don't know really. But I've been to Seattle. It's a great city.
Great go-karts there. Great go-kart.
Yeah. Even better go-kart scene. Yeah.
Even better. Okay. Marcus Freeman said that KVA is the most basically ready to play as of all the freshmen. So that kind of goes with kind of what we were saying. He's going to come in right away. You know, he's going to be a main player for Notre Dame. Probably the most college ready recruit we have physically and mentally. He's so mature.
Yeah.
That's the exact quote from Marcus.
Like, it wouldn't be shocking if he started at Texas A&M. Like, I mean, I wouldn't bet on it today, but maybe by the end of spring, I'll bet on it. I don't know. We'll see.
We're monitoring. We'll monitor that. The two corners are Carson Hobbs and Leonard Moore. We talked about them a bunch and how they fit. I think, you know, I kind of see Pobbs is more the field guy. I think Leonard Moore is more the boundary guy. But the length, right? The length is what it is. I think they're interchangeable in terms of size, and that's what's good, right? You want those guys, like you said, position versatility, in that way, and then. I think it fits with what the direction they're going, right? With Christian Gray, he's a very long player. We know that these two guys are long. Like, they want that size, and they want to be able to get guys in those positions. Kind of length is kind of everything at corner. And so, yeah, I think those are good prospects. Jamie, anything else on them?
Yeah, I just think I'm always wary of like completely trusting every single thing that, people are like, trust the coaches. Mike Mickens is
Right.
like, yeah, he is great, but people should make their own opinions, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having your own opinions after watching, or you learn some things from differently and you have a different opinion. In saying that, the track record is pretty great from Mike Mickens, and I like both these guys, and I think they're underrated, really, in terms of where they're at. And I mean, I was higher on Ben Morrison than I think anybody. I know you were high on him too, Greg, but like, just in terms of just like these other services and stuff like that, like I definitely was higher. Like, he was a low 4-star for everywhere, I think. Right. And, I thought he was like at least a top 200 kid. And I mean, that one has turned out pretty great. I mean, we'll see. Like, we don't know how it's going to be with all these guys, and saying like this guy could be the next Ben Morrison is totally unfair to anyone, because you just don't find too many guys like that. But I think Carson Hobbs, to me, what stood out about him was the ability to play man coverage and make plays on the ball in phase. Right. That was the thing that really stood out to me. Just kind of like the understanding of how to like get into the body of receivers and like play the football. And then I think also, more, I just think, obviously he's got good ball skills, but I just want to know how fast he is when going against, like, I would love to see him just going up like Cam Williams running a 9 route, and it's like, okay, turn and run with Cam Williams here, and let's see it, because that's my question with him. Because other than that, man, the guy is like, he looks freakishly long. Like, and I don't know if he's going to be like Sauce Gardner, but that was like the one thing with Sauce Gardner, right? It was that he had that, and then also he had the speed, but he could, play a certain way. I just see both guys are projectable man coverage corners, and that's what Notre Dame wants. And I think, like, they're not everyone is going to work out, but like both these guys have a chance to be very good.
Marcus Freeman says he doesn't want to continue to major in the transfer portal. He wants to build a program, lean more into high school recruiting rather than building through the portal, which will still be a priority. I think that's right. Like, I think everyone wants to bring in their own guys, evaluate them and develop them and bring them along. Right. I think Notre Dame doesn't. I think they're bringing a little bit more into the portal than I think they're comfortable with this year. And we've kind of talked about before, like, I think this Riley Leonard at quarterback thing, I think they want to be done. I don't think they want to do that again. I think they plan to develop one of the quarterbacks that is on the roster right now, and have that be the situation. And then you bring in another class, like full class of 2025 wide receivers. You don't have to get 2 in the portal this year, and you don't have to be after a third, right? Like, I think this year is kind of a unique situation with that. So that makes sense for Marcus Freeman. On to the safeties. We're saving the best for last, the best position on the football field. We talked about Kennedy Urlacher just a little bit ago. So Tabron, Benny Powell, and Bronte Johnson are the safeties in the class, aside from Urlacher there. I said that Bronte Johnson was the high risk, high reward. And I only say risk because of the fact that he hasn't played a position, right? So that's tough. You really are projecting. He didn't even play receiver this year. Like, he had to play quarterback, and I think he hurt his shoulder. Was it his shoulder that he hurt? Right. So he was basically out for the year. So it was kind of a lost season for him. ability is off the charts. He's very long. He's a very explosive player. He's a very good athlete. And you can see, like, you look at him, you think, oh, that's safety, right? Like, you see it, right? But you haven't seen him play the position really. And then Tabron Benny Powell kind of fits into that, although he had a lot more. He had a ton of tape this year because he played safety position specifically there. So, Jamie, I think the upside for these two guys is immense, right? They're very good athletes. They have very good size. It's like if these two guys are in the back for your defense, you think those are two good-looking players, and we can really do some things with them. So what do you see from them?
Yeah, that's what I would say too. Like, is they look the part.
Yeah.
Like, they look like you're like, that's how safety's supposed to look in terms of just like length and just like eating up ground with long strides and speed and just playing the football. Like, I think obviously you see that more with Johnson on offense, right? And his ability to kind of play the football in there. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't even think we need to go deep on Johnson, just other than the fact that, like, man, this guy's an exceptional athlete. And like, I'm excited to kind of see what he looks like, a year from now, basically, like, because it's going to take some time. But man, I wasn't surprised that Tabron Benny Powell looked good as a senior. Like, I kind of figured he would. And I definitely, when you look at like Malik Hartford and Ben Minich, who played at the same program as him the year before, you could tell those guys are well coached, like really well coached, and they played like within themselves. And I think that's the thing that stood out to me was like, he played like a guy that it was like, I mean, you would have just thought this guy played safety the year before, and then every year other than that, you would have just thought all of these things with him because he just looked like under control. Like, it's like, oh, I know, like, on this angle, oh, I gotta hit this, like, I gotta go full speed to get this guy on this bubble, or I know I gotta like slow play it to do this. And it was just like there was just kind of like an understanding there, which makes me think that like this guy's a very coachable guy, and that's gonna be big. But just him just like making plays and just kind of like his ability to kind of see things as like the play develop and just like recognition of certain things and being able to make the play on the ball. Like, I was impressed. I was really impressed. And I guess the main thing is like with me, will he have like the speed and the range to kind of cover as much ground as you want? But I think he's a good football player, and he's easily a guy that was heavily criticized when they took him. But I mean, I think he has a shot. He definitely has a shot.
And the good thing with Benny Powell is you've already seen him play near the line of scrimmage. So, like, that's in his bag, right?
Yeah.
You had to see him on the back end. Now he has that on the back end. Now you have, like, we were just talking about, like, now you have a really good chess piece there. Someone you can move around and play different things. You can do different things with him. I think initially, like, the fact that he picked it up so quickly, I thought his first couple games, it's like it was just there wasn't the playmaking.
Yeah.
As the season went on, it's like suddenly he was making plays all over the place. And that's what you want, right? And that's what you kind of would have hoped to see with Bronte Johnson, but he's such a good athlete. You get him into your program. Chris O'Leary has got a good – I mean, look at what he did with Xavier Watts, right? Like, it just the time, it just like he turned him into the defensive player of the year in college football, right? And so that's a really good selling point for him. A couple comments, just a couple more comments from Marcus Freeman here, and we'll wrap it up on RJ Oben. Apparently, Joe Alt told him that he was the best defensive end he played this season. So that's good, right?
High
if Joe Alt thinks he's really good,
that's extremely high praise.
On Chris Mitchell, it was all about speed and the production. Speed was the biggest thing. He talked a lot about having faced Bo Collins, so they knew what they had there. We kind of talked about that on earlier shows about how, I think Xander was talking about why are you bringing so many guys from the ACC? Well, this is why, right? You play them, and you've been able to scout them that way. He said Riley Leonard was the in his opinion. Now this is very of course he's going to say this, but he thought he was the best quarterback in the portal, so they took him. And it's like, we'll tailor what we do around his skill set. So you get the best player, tailor what you do around.
Seems like a good plan.
Yeah. Freeman says Riley Leonard's presence, who is not a grad transfer, is an example of Notre Dame finding ways to admit the right guy. Progress continues in that situation. So again, not a grad transfer.
Very positive. Very positive.
I mean, this is like one of the
biggest
biggest
kind
things.
of comment Notre Dame fans should be really excited about.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger things. So what the program needed moving forward. Jamie, that's going to do it. I think that's the entire recruiting class. I don't think I missed anybody. Did we miss anyone? I don't think so.
No, we got everybody.
Okay, we just want to make sure. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the like button. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is we are going live. It is that time of year that there could be there's an OC opening, right? We might have to be going live soon, not soon, whatever it may be. So you're going to want to stay locked in, IRSportsDaily.com. Hit the notification bell soon when we're going to live show. Jamie, what is your schedule on Friday?
On Friday?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's just family stuff. I don't know. We might
have to do a Christmas mailbag, Jamie, because it's Christmas is Monday, and then Tuesday we might be I might be busy with family and things like that. So
I mean, obviously,
Friday
early next week is not going to be a time for anybody. Obviously.
It's tough. It's tough. So, and we're gonna have to do eventually we're gonna have to do a game preview because Notre Dame is gonna be coming up soon. So why don't we do Friday? Let's try to do a Christmas mailbag for everyone, like a kind of a Christmas show, and then we'll go forward from there. Let's plan for that.
All right, sounds great.
All right, guys. So have a good rest of the day. Take in the content. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.